Welcome to Willoughby DIY. My name's Faith, and today we're going to be taking these 3 signs and turning them into a hanging shelf and a pair of matching signs for the bathroom. To everyone who watched, liked, and or subscribed to my first video, thank you so very much for the support. So I'm taking these 2 Dollar Tree pictures. They're just the little box pictures. You can find them all year round, different styles, sizes. I'm just taking ones I already had that were in my bathroom and they've seen better days. I'm just going in with a hobby knife and removing the entire image from the front of these. There's a clear film over the top of these images that makes it hard to get paint to stick to them. I would have liked to have saved them, but I kind of rushed it and messed it up. And then with the linen white chalk paint from Rustoleum, I decided to make my first blunder of this video. As soon as I did that, it bubbled right up. So I had to go in with a damp sponge and just wet the top of it, just dampen it, and then go back in with my hobby knife and scrape it all up. All the excess I was able to scrub off of the surface with the scrubby side of a sponge. Sorry about the lighting. And now we can get back to it. After I let it dry, I went in and gave it one coat of the linen white chalk paint on the fronts of both of the pictures, and that worked nicely. While I did end up covering the sides, I still wanted to paint them because they looked a little dingy, to be honest. I've had them for a couple of years now. So I just gave one coat of paint to the sides as well. And once that was all dry, I went in and made my second mistake. I took this stencil from the Dollar Tree and I just trimmed it off of the wheel so that I could work with it easier. I went ahead and covered up the parts I didn't want to paint with some painter's tape and secured it down with the painter's tape as well. My original concept was that it would have a low contrast, just be a very subtle background, but I ended up really not liking that. So I went in with Antique Parchment by Apple Barrel and made my second blunder. Unfortunately, I actually ended up using this color on both of the signs before I realized I really just kind of hated it. So using Antique Parchment, I just covered the face of one of the signs and decided to go with a super contrasting color scheme. Well, much more contrasting than this was, at least. Then using the white, Wicker White, and medium yellow, I mixed up a pretty light yellow color and covered the face of the second sign in that color. And you can kind of see here before I painted over it how little it contrasted. It just didn't work out. And then I line up my stencil much better than I did the first time around. The yellow one I stenciled with the Antique Parchment. And if you're also doing this project or any project using a stencil, make sure that your brush, or preferably a foam brush, just has a very little paint on it, and you just want to make sure it's almost dry before you apply it. And on the second one, I just used that same light yellow I mixed up and stenciled using that. And once those were dry, I went in with some Mod Podge and gave them one thin coat over the face of the signs. And once that dries, I'm going to use my printed out phrases that I chose and transfer those onto each of my signs. So I used wash your hands for one and please flush for the other, hoping that will remind my 10-year-old to do those things. To transfer, I just did a graphite transfer with my pencil. You just color the back of your image, place it where you want it, tape it down, and trace over it. And you could use your Cricut or more stencils, stickers, whatever you have, but I enjoy hand lettering. It's fun to me. And once I finished both of those, I went in with the color Pavement by Apple Barrel and just went over all of those pencil lines. And I had to be extra careful today, the day I did this, because I had way too much coffee that day. I was super jittery and shaky and I had to go really slow. And even though it didn't turn out perfect, I think it still turned out nice. I really like it. I did go back in with the white and the yellow to do a few touch-ups, but I didn't record that. And once that was all dry, I just went in to make my border. I used this cotton twine I got from Walmart, and I just wrapped it around my sign, not attaching with glue or anything, just wanted to measure it because I'm going to kind of dye these. And I actually found this twine at Walmart in the clearance section for 50 cents a roll. I just wrapped it till it looked the way I would want it to look in the end, and then I did a few extra rounds just to make sure I had a little bit extra. And then taking that piece I just measured out, I used it to measure and cut out a piece for my second sign. And then to dye this, I just used some water and some acrylic paint. I used yellow ochre from FolkArt. And I just mixed it up really good. I would recommend using less water than I use if you want a darker color, more water if you want it to be light. Just make sure you mix it really well because the paint likes to settle in the bottom. Then you just dunk your cotton twine in, let it soak up that color and squeeze it out gently. The more you squeeze, the more the liquid comes out and the less vibrant your color will be. Then you just hang it up to dry and it's ready to be used. Using my glue gun, I'm going to attach the cotton twine to the outside of my pictures. Then starting at the bottom of the sign, I put a dot of glue in the middle of each side and on each corner of the first row to secure that first row on. And then after that, I just wrapped it around and just kept pushing each row down until it completely covered the sides and I could no longer see any of that white. And then once I was at the other edge, I repeated what I'd done in the first row and I just put a dot of glue in the middle and on each corner to secure it down. But before I trimmed out the edge, I did add one more row along that front corner edge to sort of give it more of a framed look when you see it from the front. I just put a line of glue pretty much all along that corner and placed the cotton twine on top of it. I don't think I'm explaining it very well, but hopefully you can see from the video what I'm trying to tell you. And once that's done, your signs are finished and they're so cute. For the hanging shelf, I took a sign I got from the Goodwill for $1 and I'm going to paint over it with this medium yellow paint from FolkArt. I'm just going to give it one full coat all over it. I would recommend doing 2 coats to make it more opaque if you're doing this project, if your paint doesn't completely cover on the first coat. But I didn't. It still turned out nice, but I kind of wish I'd done 2 coats of the yellow. Once that dries, after you finish painting it, and when it dries, we're just going to take this white votive candle and rub the wax from it all over the surface. And you do have to dust off some of that excess wax, but it's no big deal. And once that's all done, I'm going in with the linen white chalk paint from Rustoleum, and I'm giving it 1 coat over the entire surface. If I can remember who it was that I saw this from before, I will link it. I'll add it to my description. But right now I can't remember which YouTuber I saw do this, but basically you just do a color, cover it in wax, paint another color over it, and distress it so you can see that first color you painted. Like I said, we're going to distress, so we're going in with this sandpaper and gently distressing. And if you're doing this project, you can distress as much or as little as you like. Some of the spots didn't really look as good as I'd wanted. They look sort of greenish, grayish, so I did dry brush some of that medium yellow to make it more vibrant. And then we're going to take this picture hanging kit from the Dollar Tree, and I just need 4 of these eyelet screws, or whatever they're called. And I stuck them in this cardboard to hold them still while I paint them with the Licorice black from FolkArt. Once that dried, I added a silver metallic from CraftSmart on top of that. And taking these plant hangers from the Dollar Tree, I need 4 chains, and one of the hangers only comes with 3, so I had to take 1 from the second one. Using my pliers, I just removed the large hanging hook from the top of them, and I also removed the extra chain at the end. And I just sort of laid my sign down and held out the chains to measure them the way I wanted. And I think I ended up with like 15 links on the longest and 14 on the shortest. I'm not sure, but it was 1 less link in the shorter chain. You're going to take one of the long ones and one of the short ones and attach them to these clip hooks that come with the hanger, the plant hangers from the Dollar Tree. And you're going to do 2 of those. And then I went in with that silver paint again and a foam brush, and I just gave it 1 coat of the silver paint. Then I went in with those hooks and I just screwed them in halfway and unscrewed them from each corner. And then I added a little glue that I got from the Dollar Tree, some woodwork glue, to the ends of each of those little screws and screwed them all back in all the way, and made sure I cleaned up the extra glue that oozed out. And now we can attach our chain. You want to attach the short end on the back and the long end on the front. Just use your pliers, open up that link, and then carefully pinch those back together. And once you've attached both of them, your hanging shelf is complete. And I added some light items, just this greenery and a wooden pencil holder and a little bowl for my rings when I shower. And I think this project turned out beautifully. If you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you guys next time.